Potter's Store says that ethics is knowing the difference between what you have the right to do and what the right thing to do is. This is why today I will talk to you about cloning and why I think it's unethical and dangerous. Nowadays, scientists think that they're doing a good for a world by just cloning animals and in the future people, when I think that it's really the opposite. And I also don't believe that a person should have the right to do that. So first of all, what is cloning? Cloning is the process of making multiples of an organism with identical genes. It could happen naturally and artificially. So in addition to that, a gene is a basic biological unit that makes up our distinctive characteristics, and it's made up of smaller molecules, which is the DNA. So cloning can happen naturally, and by naturally, there's some examples such as bacteria, plants, and identical twins. Plants and bacteria could reproduce asexually, which means that they just multiply or duplicate themselves, and they make more organisms by doing that, which is why they're called cloning, or clones, because they're the same identical organism just duplicating itself. With identical twins, it's a little bit different. It's once the egg and this sperm are together, like it's fertilized, when the cell divides itself and makes two of them, and these develop into different organisms but with the same identical DNA. This is why it's also considered cloning. Now, artificial cloning, it could be three of them: gene cloning, reproductive cloning, and therapeutic cloning. Which therapeutic cloning, it means human cloning. So now, second point, why I think it's unethical and dangerous. So first of all, ethics is what the knowing knowing the difference between good and bad and actually taking action for it. Williamson says that cloning is unethical because it takes the uniqueness from a person away. And I believe this is really true. I believe that we're all unique and we're all different from each other, and by cloning, you're taking that away from the person or the organism by making another organism the same way as the previous or original organism. Why I think it's dangerous? It's dangerous because very few organisms have been cloned, and they develop some health issues, and this was said by Thomas Shannon in her article, in his article, and it says that very few organisms are actually cloned, and they developed all the way until they're alive, and they end up either dying within a couple of days or actually growing and then developing health issues. And this is just from the few that actually make it. There are so many that don't develop, or that the cells just don't duplicate themselves or don't multiply themselves, and they never become an organism. So I think it's really unethical that they're just making more organisms, and then they suffer during their lifetime. So cloning was declared unethical, and Elliot Marshall says in his article that a company called Advanced Cell Technology was declaring or making statements that they were actually trying to make a clone from human zygotes and embryos. And this is when President Bush said that he thought that it was unethical and that he was going to do something about it. And then Cheryl Gay in her article says, and actually states, that the House of Representatives actually voted that cloning, or human cloning actually, was really unethical and that it should be banned. These developed, of course, some consequences, which was that the person that could continue or would continue trying human cloning should be fined with $1 million, and they could be in prison for up to 10 years. So, in conclusion, although technology continues to advance and it's really hard for us to keep up with it, I believe that there's some lines that shouldn't be crossed, and I believe cloning is one of them. So, with what I said, I really think that it's really dangerous and unethical. And it's not just dangerous talking about health issues, but also with what the humans could do with it. I believe that once you have the power to do something like that, you won't ever stop. And that's why it's really dangerous for our society. Um, Matthew 10:30 says that even the hairs from your head are all counted. And I believe that if God took the time to actually create you the way that He did, was because of a reason. And I don't think that a human should have the right to take that away from you by